The year is 1988. George H.W. Bush defeats Michael Dukakis in the presidential election to become the 41st president of the United States. For the first time ever, CDs outsell vinyl records, and The Cosby Show is the #1 television program in America. But groundbreaking television and a Bush presidency aren't the only big news. In 1988, Microsoft adds another subsidiary, Microsoft CH, in Korea. And just days after the new year, on January 13th, Microsoft and Ashton Tate announced Microsoft SQL Server. It's a relational database server software product for local area networks.
You know, Bill, when you work as hard as I do to build a great database, you want a great server behind it. And the best thing about SQL Server is it lets DBase 4 users share data over a network.
I'm sorry, Ed, but that's not quite right. The best thing about SQL Server is that it lets Microsoft Excel users analyze and graph workgroup data.
What do you mean, Bill? SQL Server works great with DBase 4.
Look, Ed, it works great with Excel.
No, you look, Bill.
Hey, that's my data.
That's my data. It's the same data. At the same time.
From the same SQL server.
Supporting both front-end applications.
You know, Ed, it sure is silly how tool friends can disagree over such a small misunderstanding.
Sure is, Bill. Hey, let's have a beer and discuss old times. What do you say?
Super idea. There's the server. Server! You know, when you work as hard as I do to create a great spreadsheet, you want a beer that won't fill you up. And the best thing about this beer is that it's less filling.
No, Bill. The best thing about this beer is that it tastes great.
Wait, let's just assume they're both true.
Right, I think this calls for a sequel. Server.
SQL Server Brewing, Las Vegas, Nevada.
On April 8th, Microsoft Manufacturing and Distribution moved into the Canyon Park Industrial Complex. It's a brand new 245,000 square foot facility in Bothell, Washington. In June, Microsoft hires Mike Maples, he's formerly of IBM, as Vice President of the Application Software Division. One day after Maples is hired, on June 15th, Microsoft Online, a two-way electronic support service, is announced. Now, the service allows users to send questions and requests for service directly to Microsoft support engineers. And June keeps on glowing with big Microsoft news on the 20th. Microsoft Mouse sales top the 1 million mark. Now, August sees the debut of a new automatic out-of-office notification feature for Xenix email, meaning that anyone who sends vacationing Microsoft employees an email will be automatically sent an out-of-office response, something that will become standard and essential for most email services in the future. Later that fall, Microsoft restructures the Applications Division into 5 business units designed to streamline product development and prepare the Applications Division for its expected growth over the next 5 years. October 1988 is marked by 3 big Microsoft moments. First, Microsoft and 5 other major software companies announced the formation of the Business Software Association to combat international software piracy, promote the protection of intellectual property, and reduce international trade barriers. Shortly after the formation of the BSA, Microsoft announces a new education program aimed at schools K through 12 and universities. It includes a cooperative hardware-software packaging program with IBM and special-priced academic versions of selected Microsoft software. And finally, on Halloween 1988, Microsoft and IBM released the jointly developed OS/2 1.1 with Presentation Manager. In November, Microsoft closes out the year by launching the Making It All Make Sense advertising campaign. And while 1988 sees the release of other products, including Learning DOS 2.0, MS-DOS 4.01, Excel for OS/2, QuickBasic 1.0 for Mac, and the ever-popular Flight Simulator 3.0 for the PC, the world continued to see major changes. Russian politician Mikhail Gorbachev introduced Glasnost. It's a domestic policy that allowed greater freedoms of information and speech in the Soviet Union. Ted Turner acquired the MGM film library and started Turner Network Television, or TNT. And a computer virus created by a 23-year-old student at Cornell University attacked more than 6,000 computers, becoming the first internet worm to attract major media attention. It's the close of 1988, and Microsoft's fiscal year-end sales total over $590 million, while the employee headcount grows to 2,793 people. But the world is about to go through a period of monumental change, and Microsoft is about to go through a monumental expansion. The year is 1989. The Berlin Wall comes down, and the New York Times declares the Cold War over. China imposes martial law as pro-democracy demonstrators occupy Tiananmen Square in Beijing, and Milli Vanilli wins the 1989 Grammy Award for Best New Artist. The award is later revoked when it's discovered that their entire album was lip-synced. Of course, Microsoft was in the media spotlight too. In 1989, The Today Show taped an episode in Seattle featuring the company and Bill Gates. It was also a year of massive expansion for Microsoft, as it opened a sales office in Hong Kong and subsidiaries in Brazil, Israel, Belgium, Taiwan, and Puerto Rico. And the expansions weren't just geographic. On January 20th, the Microsoft Roadshow opened in Seattle, Washington, the first of 10 stops around the country. Dealers and corporate executives had a chance to try 9 different applications, get a peek at 3 unreleased products, and attend specialty seminars on Excel and Word. 5 days later, on January 25th, Microsoft unveiled a promotional campaign for Excel for Windows, targeting users who are considering purchasing or upgrading to future releases of Lotus 1, 2, 3. The following month, on February 15th, Microsoft announces that it will make a minority investment of a little less than 20% in the Santa Cruz Operation Incorporated, the world's leading developer and publisher of Unix system software. The big Microsoft events of 1989 continue on March 27th, when the company hosts the 4th International Conference on CD-ROM. Seeing is believing in Anaheim, California.
Is we believe that it's possible to create a platform for CD software, a platform where there'll be an installed base of over 1 million machines. And that platform will allow us to transform the PC into a far more powerful tool than it is today with its floppy-based software.
Later that spring, on May 3rd, Microsoft and Ashton Tate announced the shipment of the Microsoft SQL Server 1.0, a powerful relational database server for PC-based local area networks. On the same day as the SQL announcement, Steve Ballmer is promoted to Senior Vice President. Ballmer had been Vice President of System Software since 1984, but he now reports directly to John Shirley, President. Microsoft begins the summer by forming the Multimedia Division on June 5th, 1989. The division is dedicated to the development and marketing of multimedia system software and consumer products. A few weeks later, on June 19th, Office for the Macintosh is finally available. Now, this is the first ever version of Office, and Macintosh applications include Word 4.0, Excel 2.2, PowerPoint 2.01, and Mail 1.37. The 4 applications provide the tools to perform the essential business tasks of most business professionals. Also in June, Microsoft Mouse sales surpassed 2 million units. That's twice the number sold less than 1 year ago. Remarkably, it took Microsoft 5 years to ship the first 1 million units, but it takes only 1 year to ship the second million. The following month, on July 18th, the Usability Group opens its new in-house testing facilities, where it will test interfaces, documentation, and instructional materials. Also in July, the first financial analyst meeting is hosted at the corporate campus. Speakers include John Shirley, Bill Gates, Frank Gaudet, Mike Maples, Jeremy Butler, and Scott Oakey. On August 1st, 1989, Microsoft announces Online Plus. It's a comprehensive software support service that gives corporations priority access to senior technical support staff. Now, the service includes unlimited telephone access through a private phone number and electronic access to high-level support personnel and an extensive database of product information. In mid-August, Microsoft encounters a PR hurdle when a Seattle Times cover article about the working environment at Microsoft alleges that Microsoft employees are working long and dedicated hours that preclude any personal life. In response to the article, proud Microsoft employees make Microsoft Velvet Sweatshop logo sweatshirts and wear them on August 18th. And on August 31st, as the month comes to a close, Microsoft reveals that a complete Chinese MS-DOS version 3.21 will be provided to licensed OEMs and shipped in the future by representatives in Taiwan. Now, this will be the first time a retail version of MS-DOS has been made available directly to customers. Later that fall, on October 3rd, Microsoft announces the availability of Microsoft Flash File System, a file system for Intel's flash memory technology. It allows the MS-DOS end user to use flash memory in exactly the same way as a conventional disk drive. But there is one last major event left for the company in 1989. Just before the year ends on December 27th, Microsoft announces that John Shirley will retire as President and Chief Operating Officer on June 30th, 1990. Shirley, President since August of 1983, will continue to play a role in the management of the company as a member of the Board of Directors and as a consultant for strategic projects. And while Microsoft's notable releases in '89 include Word 5.0 for MS-DOS, Microsoft Mail 2.0, Works 2.0 for PC, MS-DOS ROM 2.0, and Microsoft Basic Professional Development System 1.0, other news continued to shake the world, including a 6.9 magnitude earthquake in the San Francisco Bay Area. As the year drew to a close, the biggest movies at the box office were Batman, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and Look Who's Talking. But Microsoft was also doing blockbuster business, and by year-end, the company's sales totaled over $804 million, while the employee headcount swelled to over 4,000 people. Still, those sales figures would pale in comparison to the upcoming year, when Microsoft would finally cross the $1 billion annual sales mark. The year is 1990. Boris Yeltsin is elected president of Russia, and the first McDonald's opens in Moscow. The savings and loan scandal rocks the banking industry. Meanwhile, Microsoft launches subsidiaries in Norway, Denmark, Portugal, and the Netherlands. And on January 8th, an international version of Word for Windows becomes available for the first time in the UK, Canada, and Australia. 1 month later, on February 13th, Microsoft and Micro Decisionware announced the Database Gateway, which integrates SQL Server and mainframe environments so that users can obtain data transparently from either or both the standard PC applications. A few days later, Microsoft license packs for large corporate accounts are announced. This new Microsoft packaged product will be distributed through dealers and is a worldwide program. In March, Microsoft makes a series of big moves. On the 5th, the company announces that it will provide TrueType outline font technology in Microsoft Windows and in OS/2 Presentation Manager 2.0. 4 days later, Microsoft Press announces the acquisition of the publication rights to the entire line of computer books from the Cobb Group Incorporated, bringing the number of Microsoft Press titles in print to more than 100. In a historic moment on March 18, 1990, East Germany holds its first democratic elections since 1932. Excel for OS/2 installed on IBM Model ADS keeps track of and charts the results in the Press Center. On March 26th, Microsoft announces the integration of voice messaging capabilities into Microsoft Mail for AppleTalk networks. It becomes the first business application to incorporate sound recording, compression, and playback technology. Days later, on the 30th, WinMail becomes available for internal use. It allows the users to manage email on a local PC with the Windows 3.0 graphical user interface. Later that spring, leadership changes come to Microsoft, as Michael Hallman is appointed as President and Chief Operating Officer to succeed upon John Shirley's retirement. On April 9th, Russian MS-DOS 4.01 becomes the first Microsoft product localized for the Soviet market. At the end of the month, on April 30th, technical support directly from Microsoft is extended to the more than 25 million users of Microsoft MS-DOS in the United States. In May, Microsoft donates $100,000 to the Smithsonian Institution for a new exhibit to be called The Information Age: People, Information, and Technology. This exhibit will explore the way information technology has changed society over the past 150 years, and a special selection will be devoted to the evolution of personal computers into current information technology. May 22nd proved to be a momentous day for the company, as Microsoft announces the availability of Windows 3.0 at the City Center Theater in New York, New York. Breakthroughs in computer memory management would make this version the one that finally gave momentum to third-party applications being built for the Windows environment.
Tell Bill it's ready.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's ready. This would have been a very extravagant way to announce a delay in our schedule. Today we're introducing Microsoft Windows version 3. I think that this represents a major milestone in the history of the PC industry. An early milestone in PC history was the creation of the MS-DOS operating system, brought out in 1981. The MS-DOS operating system provided a means for hundreds of hardware manufacturers to build machines and hundreds of software companies to build applications at the same time, with all of those applications working on all those machines. Now, Microsoft recognized a long time ago that the DOS interface wouldn't help us to achieve our vision. Our vision is that there will be a personal computer on every desktop, and it will be the key tool for the information age. Now, we're going to do this demonstration on a 1 megabyte PC. We want to prove to you this is a great product for 1 megabyte systems. But the first thing you'll notice is how we've changed the look of Windows 3.0. For example, we've done an incredible amount to use color in a much better way. All of these icons make really extensive use of color. We've also cleaned up the borders, and we've changed the font. We now use different size fonts, and we use proportional fonts that look much better.
In the heat of summer, the Microsoft Roadshow 90, Seeing is Believing, hits the highways. For the third year, products and expertise are taken to selected cities around the country, and seminars are offered to end users and resellers. This show is almost entirely devoted to Microsoft Windows products and the graphical user interface. Later on July 2nd, 1990, the Microsoft Company Store opens. It will provide Microsoft Pressbooks, Microsoft software, and Microsoft Mark logo items. A week later, on July 11th, Microsoft announces plans to open an East Coast product support services site located in Charlotte, North Carolina. The end of the month, on July 24th, 1990, Microsoft kicked off its 15th anniversary celebration by becoming the first personal computer software company to exceed $1 billion in sales in a single year, with revenues of $1.18 billion. Happy anniversary indeed. That fall, on August 30th, Microsoft forms the Microsoft Consulting Services Group, aimed at helping large corporate customers better use Microsoft products to build complex information systems. In September, Microsoft launches the Microsoft Windows Computing Marketing Program. It's the largest single marketing campaign in the company's history to date. The total cost of the marketing campaign is more than $7 million. At the end of the month, the Microsoft Consultant Relations Program, a new program designed to support third-party consultants who develop systems based on Microsoft products for their customers, is announced. On November 12th, Microsoft Corporation and Interface Group announced the joining of forces to launch Windows World Conference and Exposition. The annual industry event will address the needs of the rapidly growing number of companies offering Windows products. Also in November, Bill Gates delivers his Information at Your Fingertips speech at Fall Comdex, Las Vegas, Nevada.
It was 7 years ago, in 1983, when I last keynoted Comdex. At that time, I kicked off Microsoft's crusade for the graphical user interface. Well, a lot has changed in these 7 years. Not only has that crusade come to fruition, But now we're in an industry that's far more professional and far larger. One dramatic illustration of this change is the way I've gone about preparing my second keynote speech. In 1983, I spent an hour writing the speech, and I showed up about 10 minutes before start time. I plugged in the slide projector myself, and since I couldn't find anyone to change the slides, I asked my father, who'd come down to see the speech, if he'd do that for me. Well, this year, we're a little more elaborate. It's a real honor to keynote the first Comdex of the 1990s. The PC industry is faced this year with a major question of whether it will continue to be the very innovative, high-growth industry that it was throughout the 1980s. So this vision of information at your fingertips has exciting possibilities. It's the direction that I think we need to head. This is a formidable challenge. No single company is going to be able to do this. It's going to require hardware manufacturers, software developers, and the distribution channels all cooperating to make the vision of information at your fingertips a reality. Thank you.
And finally, the end of November 1990, the specifications of PC-based media are announced at the Microsoft Multimedia Developers Conference in San Jose. Other announcements at the conference include the Multimedia Development Kit, Tandy's plans to deliver integrated Microsoft Windows-based multimedia PCs or MPCs and upgrade kits, and Microsoft and IBM's publication of a specification for common multimedia API and data formats. Elsewhere in 1990, Tim Berners-Lee writes the initial prototype for the World Wide Web. The Gulf War begins as Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait, and Time Inc. and Warner Brothers merge to form Time Warner. As the old year ends, Microsoft has reached a staggering fiscal year-end sales totaling of $1,183 million, putting the corporation over the $1 billion mark for the first time ever. And as Microsoft says goodbye to 1990, the employee headcount totals 5,635 people. Amazingly, that billion-dollar year was only the beginning. The year is 1991. Pan Am closes down after 64 years as one of the nation's leading airlines. Clarence Thomas is confirmed as a Supreme Court justice despite accusations of sexual harassment by Anita Hill. And grunge enters the national vocabulary as Nirvana's album Nevermind hits the charts and the single Smells Like Teen Spirit becomes a massive success. Also massively successful in 1991 was Microsoft as it launched new subsidiaries in Venezuela, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Mexico, Austria, Argentina, and Thailand. And expansion results in a makeover of sorts. On February 1st, 1991, Microsoft announces a major redesign of product packaging to include the new Windows flag logo. This is, however, not the four-colored flag, but the first Windows-compatible mark. Later that month, on February 25th, it is revealed that 21 computer manufacturers have announced their intentions to build pen-based computers that will support the Microsoft Windows for Pen Computing, or Windows for Pens. In early March, Microsoft reports an agreement to acquire the assets of Consumers Software, Inc. These assets include the Network Courier product line for PC local area networks. On March 8, 1991, a toll-free piracy hotline number is established for consumer reports or inquiries about pirated software products, the creatively spelled 1-800-NOCOPYN. Days later, on March 11th, Microsoft announces the Ballpoint mouse, designed especially for use with laptop computers. Students everywhere rejoiced on March 18th when Microsoft announces the Microsoft Bookshelf for Windows on CD-ROM. Now, Bookshelf is a core set of reference materials for the home, office, or school that is run on a personal computer. But that wasn't the only Microsoft move made on the 18th. The company also purchases a 26% share of Dorling Kindersley Ltd. It's a London-based book publisher and international packager. As part of the agreement, the Microsoft Multimedia Publishing Group gains rights to license content from Dorling Kindersley for use in future multimedia software titles. And on the same day, Microsoft announces that along with 11 other companies, it plans to use a special MPC trademark to indicate to customers that hardware products and systems software bearing the mark are compatible with the previously announced multimedia PC specification. The month of March closes with good news for Microsoft. On the 25th, sales of software applications written for Windows 3.0 skyrocket. Newly released Software Publishers Association data for the year end of 1990 shows a 157% increase in sales of Windows applications in both the US and Canada. Later that spring, on May 10th, Microsoft's aggressive anti-piracy campaign gets a new slogan: Work with the original. Logos, artwork, posters, brochures, and marketing programs and events will all emphasize the advantages of working with legitimate software, both domestically and internationally. On May 20th, there's even more big news, as Microsoft announces Visual Basic for Windows at Windows World 1991 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, this isn't the biggest show of the year, but it's the only one with 3 keynote speeches. This first Windows World is dedicated to those of you who've supported Windows since its introduction back in 1983. I had an opportunity to go out on the show floor last night and look around at some of the new things that are going on. And it was fun to have developers come up to me and talk to me about their applications. Several of them describe things they're doing with Windows that I wouldn't have even imagined would be possible. And a number of them talked about the great sales that they're having of their applications.
But that's only the first of 2 major software announcements. The second comes on June 11th, when Microsoft announces the immediate availability of Microsoft MS-DOS 5.0.
Speed, take 5, cue 'em. You never know when it will happen. Your DOS applications demand more memory. You want to move between applications like that. And you want to move files between directories just as fast. You're in a hurry to edit a text file, and you haven't quite mastered edlib. What do? Or you trash a file by mistake. What do you do? What do you do? Get MS-DOS 5. No PC should be without it.
3 days later, Microsoft is finally connected to the nationwide TCP IP-based internet. It's a sign of big things to come. At the height of summer on July 8th, the company announces that a product support service site will be opened in Dallas, Texas in October of '91. The new Dallas site will be headed by Glenn Young, who will report to Patty Stonecipher. A familiar and very useful app makes its debut on August 5th. Microsoft Wizards will allow Microsoft applications to anticipate what a user will do next, or suggest a better way to accomplish the task. The technology would enable the program to follow a user's movements as she or he works and draw a conclusion as to what the user is apt to do next. By the end of August, Excel 3.0 for Windows is generating significant gains in market share and a groundswell of support from software developers and corporate customers. Microsoft ships 1.5 million units of Excel worldwide, and 40% of the increased market share of Excel comes from users who are switching to Excel from competitive spreadsheet packages. On September 16th, Microsoft releases the Solution Series. It's a collection of standalone task-oriented applications designed for the personal and small business computer user. The applications include Works for Windows, Money, and Publisher. Now, all these apps run under Windows 3.0 and are designed for people who are new to personal computing and those who don't want to spend a lot of extra time playing around with their computers. November 1st turns out to be the date of Microsoft's second big makeover of the year. At Fall Comdex 91, Microsoft announces the new and now familiar Microsoft Windows logo, a colorful window with trailing rectangular tails in the shape of a fluttering flag. It's intended to be displayed on products that are compatible with versions 3.0 and 3.1 of Windows. Days later, November 8th, Microsoft workers demonstrate their generosity. For the first time, employees contribute more than $1 million to the United Way campaign. With Microsoft's dollar-for-dollar corporate match, the 1991 donation comes to more than $2 million. As the year comes to a close, Microsoft has one final announcement: open database connectivity that allows applications to communicate easily with both relational and non-relational management systems. It's based on the SQL Access Group's call level interface specification, which uses SQL to access database environments. In 1991, Terminator 2, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Silence of the Lambs dominate the box office, and Microsoft continued to dominate sales. 91 has been a wildly successful year for the corporation, which sees a fiscal year-end sales totaling excess of $1,843 million. Additionally, 91 sees the employee headcount balloon to over 8,000 people. But as the internet begins to gradually establish itself, how will Microsoft ride the coming online wave? The year is 1992. Bill Clinton is elected president, defeating incumbent George H.W. Bush and businessman Ross Perot. Johnny Carson retires from The Tonight Show after 30 years and is replaced by Jay Leno. And Superman dies at the hands of a monster called Doomsday in Superman issue number 75. 1992 was also a banner year for Microsoft as it launches subsidiaries in many different countries, including South Africa, Chile, Greece, the Czech Republic, Poland, the Middle East, Colombia, and Russia. And while Microsoft continues to expand around the globe, in early January it makes an expansion of a different kind when a portable computing initiative suite of technologies is announced. Later that month, on January 28th, Scott Oakey, Senior Vice President of U.S. Sales, Marketing, and Service, retires. Microsoft promotes Jeff Rakes, currently Vice President of the Office Systems Group, to fill the position. The following month, on February 3rd, Microsoft announces a new organizational structure and outlines 3 centers of strategic focus: worldwide product development, worldwide sales and support, and worldwide operations. The company creates a corresponding 3-person Office of the President to be filled by Michael Maples, Stephen Ballmer, and Francis Gaudet, who will report directly to Bill Gates, Chairman and CEO. On February 18th, Microsoft announces that it will, along with Intel, R.R. Donnelley & Sons, and Ziff Davis Publishing, host a 3-day Windows hardware engineering conference for manufacturers of personal computer systems. In March, Intel and Microsoft introduce a new specification in beta form called DVMCI. It will expand the media control interface for the Microsoft Windows graphical environment to work with current and future forms of digital video. And lest you think folks at Microsoft are all work and no play, on March 17th, Frank Gaudet, Executive Vice President of Worldwide Operations Group, leads dignitaries from Ireland and Seattle in Seattle's 1992 St. Patrick's Day Parade. It's lights, camera, action on March 20th, when for the first time TV ads are used to promote Microsoft Windows to computer users who don't necessarily read computer magazines. The commercials, which will run on network and cable programs, stress how easy personal computing can be with Windows. The commercials also promote Microsoft business programs designed to work with Windows. 3 days after the ads begin to air, Microsoft announces the Microsoft Certified Professional Program. Microsoft certification measures expertise, which helps ensure quality support to end users and company personnel. March 24th sees the company expand once again as Microsoft and Fox Software announce that they intend to merge. Under the terms of the final agreement, Dave Fulton and other Fox employees will join Microsoft. And on that last day of March, Microsoft teams up with OEMs, computer resellers, and component manufacturers to pre-install Microsoft Windows version 3.1 on a wide variety of personal computers. April 6th proves to be a momentous day as Microsoft ships Windows 3.1 with more than 1,000 enhancements. The new version creates unprecedented user demand, with more than 1 million advance orders placed worldwide. On April 7th, the new Pen operating system, aka Windows for Pens, is announced. It is the only operating system that combines full pen computing functionality and full compatibility with Windows version 3.1. More than 220 hardware and software companies have announced support. April 15th is a victorious day for Microsoft. The U.S. District Court of Northern California rules in favor of Microsoft in the ongoing Apple copyright infringement lawsuit. Now, unfortunately, April 29th finds Microsoft doing some very surreal damage control. In response to an inflammatory newspaper article in the New York Post, Microsoft announces that there are no hidden messages contained in any of the Wingdings fonts in the Microsoft Windows operating system, and certainly no hate messages against any religious or ethnic groups. On July 6, 1992, Microsoft demonstrates an early version of Windows NT at the Win32 Professional Developers Conference. All conference attendees receive Win32 API Preliminary Software Developers Kit for Windows NT, which contains an early release of Windows NT.
I think this is probably the biggest gathering of PC developers that there's ever been. In fact, we've overflowed the capacity of the Moscone Center. Windows NT is a very safe bet for the MIS community. That is because it's not tied to any particular hardware manufacturer or even any particular hardware instruction set. And so the kind of independence we're providing and the kind of tools that will be out on this platform really make it the safest choice for MIS development.
It's no accident that we called this conference the Win32 Professional Developers Conference. The focus is on the application programming interfaces that enable developers to write an application once that runs on a family of operating systems, including Windows 3.1, as well as Windows NT.
Well, for a long time, people in MIS have faced a dilemma, which is should they go for PC software, which had a wide variety of application software available, or should they go for a mini-computer or Unix-style software, which had more features but much less software available? What Windows NT does is actually solve that dilemma. For the first time, they can really choose an operating system that has the high-end features they need, as well as the wealth of application software.
We've really built in the network capability into NT and interoperability with other systems, other PC networks, Unix systems, even connections to mainframes and whatever. So it's a system that will be able to work on the desktop, compatibly on the server, and grow with the needs of an organization.
I think the group that will get the most benefit from NT will be the MIS groups, because this power combined with great applications really opens up new opportunities for them. Their end users want the benefits of PCs, and they want to write applications that have no limits in terms of providing business information.
Later that month, on July 29th, the Microsoft Developer Network is announced. Now, this new customer service is established to support all commercial and corporate developers writing applications for Microsoft Windows. The MDN will write and publish in-depth technical and strategic information on programming for Windows. And the software keeps coming when Windows for Workgroups 3.1 becomes available worldwide on October 27th. Another big date, November 10th, when Microsoft Chairman and CEO Bill Gates and President of Intel Corporation Andrew S. Grove announced the two companies' shared vision for the next wave in personal computing, digital video computing. Microsoft announces Video for Windows, which incorporates Intel Indio technology that will allow users to integrate digital video information into applications that run on Microsoft Windows. 6 days later at Comdex, Microsoft announces the availability of Access Database for Windows. It is the last major announcement in a year that sees Bill Gates receive the National Medal of Technology, becoming the first person in the PC software industry to do so. As 1992 takes a bow, Wayne's World, Aladdin, and Basic Instinct dominate the box office, and Microsoft dominates sales, pulling in a jaw-dropping $2,758,000,000 over the year. And like the year before, the headcount swells dramatically to over 11,000 people. But 1993 will bring creative new software and a tragic loss to the rapidly expanding company.